Hi there, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Ashley Fabian, aka AshFab, and this is my channel, Fab on a Dime, where I share my journey as a frugal diva on a budget. I'm an opera singer, actor, and content creator who loves saving money and building wealth. So if you'd like to join me and get your finances in order, hit that subscribe button for some more fun content. Okay, we are getting a little personal today in this video. If you had asked me years ago if I were good with money, I would absolutely laugh in your face. I was never, ever a budgeting, money, goal-focused person, ever. I mean, I would avoid opening bank statements like the plague. I hated talking about money. It stressed me out, and being someone with really unpredictable income, it made everything worse. So how was I supposed to budget or save money if I wasn't holding down a steady job? But over time, I realized that it wasn't getting me anywhere, and my mental health was really being affected by my lack of concern for my financial wellness. So I started this up and down journey of trying and failing miserably to get my act together, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was determined to start a budget and just get a better handle on my money, and when I started to do this, I made some horrible mistakes. And these are extremely common mistakes that most people make when they start, so I just wanted to take the time, share a few today in the hopes that they prevent you from making them as well. Because ultimately, these mistakes cost me a lot. Not only did I fail, but most of the time I was so discouraged that the simplest error that I made would cause me to just crumble, give it up, go right back to the way that I was for long periods of time. So that time I could have been saving money and working towards actual goals was completely lost because of some simple common mistakes. So here are 4 mistakes that I really wish I could have avoided. Number 1 is not knowing my spending habits before I started budgeting. This is something that I wish more people would have stressed to me, and I just don't know how anyone writes a budget for the first time and has any sort of success without already knowing themselves and the habits that they have with their spending. I definitely thought I knew what I was doing. Like, I came up with numbers that I thought I was spending on certain categories, but in reality, I had absolutely no clue until I actually looked at my bank statements, my previous month's statements. There was no telling how much money I was throwing at gas, takeout, etc. I remember when I first wrote a budget, I came up with my goals for the month. I wrote down all my spending categories and the goal amount that I wanted to spend on each one. And I wrote down, okay, restaurants, I bet I could only spend 50 bucks on that. And in reality, at the time, I was super busy with work and school and hardly ever cooked. So of course, I destroyed that number in a very short amount of time, simply because I hadn't taken the time to review what my actual spending habits were. And this is really important because not only did I go over my goal amount, but I went over it by a lot. And as soon as I realized how much I had failed, instead of taking a step back and saying, oh, I should fix that number for next month, like a mature, intelligent, wise, financially savvy human, I got discouraged. Like a normal human. I got frustrated and I thought, what's the point? I already went over, and I just avoided the budget. Just like I had been avoiding opening my bank statements, avoiding looking at my balance, avoided my bills until the very last minute, and I went right back to feeling overwhelmed and not good enough. When in reality, had I just known myself, I would have written down a goal number that was achievable, and I would have had a fighting chance to be successful, encouraged, and motivated to do better. So my first piece of advice for anyone looking to start a spending plan for the first time is just to track your spending first. Open up a Mint account so it does all the work for you. Just know where your money is going, because I guarantee you don't already know. You may think that you do, but you're really going to be surprised when you find out where each dollar is going on a monthly basis. Do you actually know? Because I didn't. Number 2, I was using a budget that was way too strict. Going along with number 1, not only did I have no idea what I was spending, what my spending habits actually were, I also was way too ambitious with my goals and gave myself a very strict budget the first time. I was like, okay, I'm a budgeting queen now. I'm gonna save all this money and live a restricted life so I can be rich down the road, right? No, not how it works. I wrote down goals that were way too high, didn't take into account any of my tendencies or give myself any leniency at all. This caused me to give up again, and I just was back to my usual ways of being horrible with money and missing out on a financially free life. It really does have a lot to do with psychology. When you write down goals that are achievable and simple, you're more likely to actually meet those goals. And when you meet a goal, when you accomplish something, your brain releases dopamine and encourages you to meet more and more goals. So when I started doing this, taking baby steps instead of attempting these huge leaps that were so unsuccessful, I noticed that I was more motivated. I saw a gradual shift in my money habits. I was saving more. I felt more excited about where I was headed. It was just an overall better place to be. Taking it slow, adding goals as I went, it kept me in the game, and knowing myself had a lot to do with it. Like for me, I know better than to put in a low number in the restaurants category. I know ways to make that number better, but I also know myself, and I'm not the kind of person that is super organized in the kitchen. I know I like to enjoy a night out every once in a while, and I'm not gonna deprive myself of that. If I feel too restricted, why would I keep doing this? Why would I keep going down this path of feeling controlled and then feeling guilty when I do inevitably give in? I suggest knowing yourself, writing reasonable goals that you think you'll actually stick to, and working your way up slowly. Stay in the game. That's the most important thing. Number 3, I would constantly forget special monthly expenses. As I'm sure everyone knows, it's impossible to get your budget perfectly correct the first few times. It's always a trial and error, but one simple thing that I failed to do when I first started was to really sit down and think about the expenses that I was going to face for that month specifically. Sure, you have your typical things like rent, insurance, payments, gas, groceries, and the like, but I was forgetting that each month is completely different. And treating each month like it was the same was really killing me. I was spending way more money than I had planned, and it was all because I was forgetting things. Also, I have way more costs than the average person due to my career, and I wasn't really taking those kinds of things into account. So now, before I even think about writing my goal numbers next to the usual expenses, I have to take a look at my calendar and really think about what I might have coming up. Things like holidays, will I be traveling, getting gifts for anyone, maybe I want to cook for people, or maybe I totally forgot about getting myself an Airbnb or a hotel room for this one trip that I have coming up. I had to write a very specific budget for myself as an opera singer too. I have things like lessons, coachings, audition trips, and pianist fees, not to mention my attire, since I love keeping my gown collection fabulous. But these types of things aren't included on just any old budget template that you might find on the internet. Your expenses are going to look different than anyone else's. Mine look wild compared to yours too. We have different lives, different priorities, and different costs. So when I started to take the time to really think about each month and what each month was going to bring, I was able to include those things in my spending plan for the month. Sure, I still have last minute things that pop up, but now I'm better prepared for them. And I quickly learned that every budget is going to be different from the last. And I created a template specifically for my needs that also has the flexibility for me to include special monthly costs. If you're curious about the template that I use, I do have a link to download that in the description for free. Number 4, forgetting about my budget throughout the month. The 4th mistake I kept making when I first started was just absolutely forgetting about my plan. And this is so silly because it took so much time and effort to come up with a budget in the first place. So there's no point in writing it if I'm not going to follow it. But I realized that this was a more common problem than I had thought. And I think the biggest thing that helped me was to put it in a place where I was going to see it throughout the month, or leaving notes for myself in my phone or around the apartment to remind myself of certain goals that I had. And I had to do this a lot when I first started, especially, just because I wasn't used to living that way. This wasn't a pattern that my brain had picked up on yet, so I was spending the money the way that I always had, and I had nothing to show for my hard work creating that budget in the first place. Once I started to keep up with it and check in every so often, I noticed a world of difference. I became more aware of the things that I was purchasing. I started noticing my own habits, like how I would purchase things just because they were on sale. Once I learned these things and had these reminders of my goals, I realized that every purchase that I made needed to have a purpose. My spending became more intentional and I was a million times more motivated. This took a while. Like I said, I had to learn this the hard way, but if you're just starting your financial journey, I would highly recommend that you put your budget in plain sight. Keep reminders where you're gonna see them. I really think this is a foolproof way to stick to your plan. If you've made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you've been budgeting for a while or if you're just starting. Tell me the mistake that resonated with you or if there's something that you think I should have included in this list. I love sharing my journey here and on my Instagram, so please join me. Let's build wealth together. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.